Greetings! My name is Dalton Watts, and this presentation will be about what I learned in this course using ASP.NET. I have created a website I call DnDWatts, which is intended to be used as a resource for various tabletop role-playing games, such as Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeon World, Stars Without Number, Godbound, and Shadowrun.
This presentation will take about 5.5 minutes. The demo after that will take about 8.5 more.
This website, like many others, will be using master pages to contain any common repeatable portions of the website's main pages. The web server will combine the master page with the individual page pieces before sending it to the client. We will also be utilizing 4 different themes based on the different styles of games that I have participated in. Each has a related banner image and color schemes, as you can see here for 2 of them, and here for the other 2. You can change the theme by editing the web.config file, setting the default page theme to one of the available options. If you were to set the page's theme to something else inside of an individual page, it would overrule the default option. My website also contains some global resource files. They are tedious to set up, and I only intend for this to be a website for my English-speaking friends and myself, so I settled for using the appropriate code in my navigation bar alone to demonstrate that I possess a knowledge of how to use them. In all of the other strings I have not used the resource files, so they will only be available in English. As the slide indicates, I set the default to English in the web.config and have files for German and Spanish. It should automatically detect the browser's preferred localization, and if it exists in the global files, it should use that. Otherwise, it will use the server's default, English. While my website would not have normally contained graphs or charts, they are an excellent way to display data. So, I have put them in here for the demonstration. I have 3 of each which grab information from XML files, and then will display that information appropriately. One of said XML files is still just the sales summary from the lectures. If the chart or graphs were to encounter an error, I have an exception utility set up to grab the stack trace and print it to a file. There are some examples on the slide here for the stack traces when I deliberately sabotaged them. The files page is meant to be a file tree for storing, displaying, and editing character sheets specific to their users, with sharing options available, similar in many ways to mythweavers.com. I did not have the time to fulfill my vision, and some of the required features, such as accounts, were not required for this assignment, so I'm using this page instead to showcase an example database as shown in class instead. I do plan on continuing this at some point over winter or summer break coming up. My database contains a single table to hold some information. Its contents are not relevant to D&D whatsoever. Most important are an incrementing ID, a title field, and a comments field.
I created a handful of stored procedures in order to handle the database.
The first creates the table that I indicated. 4 more will get the columns from the table, the first of which grabs all of the columns from all of the entries, the second, all of the columns from all of the inactive entries, third, all of the columns from all of the active entries only, and then only the title and comments from all of the active entries, as that one I feel is the most appropriate to provide to the users. And I also have one to insert new data into the table.
The third of my website pages is set up to handle 4 integer inputs. If any of the fields are empty, it defaults the value to 0. If the fields do not otherwise match the regular expression validators, it will prompt the user to re-enter the information until an acceptable value is entered. Number of dice can be anywhere from 0 and up. Number of sides must be 1 and up. The other two can accept any integer value, including negatives.
If I had added an account feature to this, I would have required most fields be filled. I would have had a comparison for the password and a range or regular expression for the age or birthday respectively, depending on which one I asked for.
And now we'll swiftly move on to the demo. There we go. Here you can see that we've got the database with a table and some stored procedures. I just ran the first one for the get active, which gives you all of the columns for all of the active fields. Rather than run through all of them, shoot me an email if you need to see more from the database. Let's go straight to the site now. Here you can see that we've got some graphs and some charts. Some more graphs, more charts. This is the levels, as labeled over here. I didn't bother filling them all out with everything. It's quite tedious putting it into XML. Nor do I actually have values for these things. I would have to go through the monster manual to figure most of this out, although I imagine that some of these are good estimations based on my own experience playing Dungeons and Dragons. As you can see, we've got some globalization going on up here. We've got German, I believe. That takes you to the home page. This icon also takes you to the home page. That's my logo control. And then we've got the dice page over here. It alerted us. I went by a little quick. Let's do that again. It's done loading. Click OK, and then these things appear. We've got some common types of dice over here. If we just click on roll dice, then you get the result of 0. If we put in that we want to roll 4-sided dice, I'm not sure why it's doing that. It wasn't on my other computer, but this one already had recording software on it, so I moved it over. Let's see. Okay, we ended up with this. If I were to add 4 to each of the dice, then it adds 4 to each of the dice. If I were to change the modifier once to -16, then we'll end up with this, where it shows this formula instead. Minor detail, but I can always fix that string. It's not wrong in any case. Over here, this is the file tree. I have this page set specifically to the Apocalypse theme. If you look at this one, I believe this was the modern theme, judging by the city up there. It was kind of difficult to find good banner images that still fit. I noticed most people had just a series of images up in the banner, but it didn't appeal to me. Anyway, this is the file tree page. We have the table with the ID, title, and comments. You can sort them. That's useful, especially if you had a list of characters, and one of these fields were level, for example. But without users, I didn't want to go too far into making a database that will only have to get scrapped later. As I said, let me know if there's anything else you want to see. Let's see. We've got the error log here. for if we're missing stuff from the charts and graphs, the exception utility outputs to the error log. We've got a dice roller as a web reference for the web service, different summary XML files, global resources, this one's just English. I had planned to have a language page such that you could set the language, but we did not cover that. I'd also set up a login page, although that was not required, so I did not implement it. There were other things that were more pressing. Here we've got themes. I have a style sheet that changes the colors of the pages, a banner image, which looks much better when it's not all shrunk down, and just the skin to help get that image into the spot it needed. We've got some controls over here. Here's the banner. I don't have anything in the footer, or the left side, or the login, or the right side. Those are left over from your example. If I were to put advertisements, they'd probably go into the left and right side, as most websites have. The logo is just an image with an anchor to the home page. Navigation is just a table, an ASP table with some labels. This here is just a part to get it past the logo, because apparently I can't set margins in ASP. I found that fairly annoying. I'm sure there's a workaround, but I had trouble with it, so I did this. This was my idea for it. Let's see. Images. Yes. Here's the image for it. All of the images that you've seen are Creative Commons. We've also got a German flag, Mexican flag, Spanish flag, and US flag for the various languages that were to be used on the languages page. I could not get an on-click function to change the language, unfortunately. If there's anything else you would like to see, we've got this. Let's see. Here's the dice roller. Just a random number generator with such and such values that returns such and such a string. Yes, and here is the master page. I don't believe I shared this with you. Yeah. Let me know if you have any more questions. Send me an email. I'll be keeping up with it, hopefully. And if I came off as arrogant at all during this, ignore it. That's just me getting into character a bit. I hope you have a wonderful winter break.